Hello, everybody. I'm very honored today that I get a chance to present a topic on discrepancies in Khmer Unicode character ordering or ordering rules and a proposed solution. Before I go further, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Makara SOK. I have been working with SIL International based in Cambodia, the National Polytechnic Institute of Cambodia, since 2017. As a project support specialist, where I do language research, tech support, and also keyboard development. And then I will go to the issues related to the discrepancies. And then I will present to you what we can do to mitigate these kind of issues. After that, I will show you what we can do together to solve this kind of issues. And then there is a little bit of a new proposal, so I will let you know when we get there. Then I'll give you a little bit of summary. And after the summary, I will show you how the fix can be done in Keyman developer. The languages that use Khmer script are Central Khmer. So this little red section here is Cambodia, which border with Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. In these countries, there are 6 ethnic minority languages that use Khmer script. There are Bunong, Tumpuan, Brau, Krung, Jarai, and Kui. These ethnic minority languages live up north of the countries. There are other two dead languages, Pali and Sanskrit, that are used in most Buddhist doctrine. And these two languages also use Khmer script to record their language. When it comes to population, there are 15.3 million people in Cambodia, according to the National Institute of Statistics report published in 2019. And there are other 3 millions, it could be more, it could be less than that by now, residing abroad. Khmer script is written from left to right and top to bottom. It is an Abugida type of writing system that is descended from Brahmi script used in India. And according to the archaeological research, Khmer script was found in the 5th and 6th century in Cambodia. To give you a little bit of an idea what Abugida is, it is a kind of language that uses a combination of consonant and vowel, where the consonant would determine the pronunciation of the syllable, where vowel is secondary. I would give you a little bit of an insight into the inventory of characters in Khmer language based on Unicode Standard and Khmer grammar references. According to the Unicode and Khmer grammar references, there are 33 consonants. Unicode listed 2 obsolete, while the Khmer reference doesn't mention that very much because they're no longer used. One important thing here that we don't see is the subscript. So Khmer grammar reference book would list 32 subscript corresponding to the 33 consonants, while the Unicode doesn't really show that with Unicode code point. But you can see there is a way or a configuration afterward how the subscript can be used in Unicode. And it is right below, it's right here. There are 16 dependent vowel according to Unicode. So these are pure vowel. There is no combination. There is no vowel and diacritic combination or vowel and sign combination at all. That's why I call it pure. While the Khmer grammar references listed 25 vowels altogether. So these are vowels that include the combination between vowel and sign, or vowel and diacritic. Both Unicode and the Khmer grammar references listed 15 independent vowels, while there is a little bit of a difference here, where Unicode has 2 more independent vowel, which are obsolete as well. That's why I put it in the bracket here. Diacritics, according to Unicode. So diacritic could also be called sign as well, according to Unicode. There are 11 according to Unicode and 2 obsoletes, plus this is also considered as a sign in Unicode Standard. 17D2 is the most used character in the language, but it doesn't mention in Khmer grammar book because 17D2 is a subscript marker or a chương marker where it can be used to combine with a consonant to create these 32 subscripts. The Khmer grammar book listed only 9 diacritics, and I put an asterisk here because there are 2 diacritics that can also be considered, or most grammar book would consider them as vowel as well. So let's look at the first issue together. I call this identical renderings, but the identical rendering here is result from different character ordering. So the number of characters and the characters themselves are the same, but the order are different. Okay, so let's look at this one. This is considered as the correct version, the correct ordering, because we have a base consonant, saw, and then we have the first subscript, so the 17D2, and then a consonant thaw. So as I have told you earlier, the 17D2 plus a consonant is a subscript. So these 2 are considered as subscript, and it would be rendered as this one underneath the base. The second one is the 17D2 with ro, consonant ro, and then these 2 is rendered as this one on the side of the base. All right, the last character here is a vowel character. It is the vowel A, right? So we have saw equal to S, and then we have ta equal T, and the ro equal R, and then the A is the A vowel. So these together would be pronounced as setrai. All right. Now let's look at the second one. The second one has these same rendering as the correct character ordering, but let's look at what we have here. Now the first and the second subscript switch places. So the 17D2 with ta is now after the 17D2 with ro, right? So you can see the sequence are different here. However, the rendering are the same, right? So this kind of thing would be very confusing for the user because the user cannot tell apart which one is the correct order, because whatever they focus on would be the thing on the screen. And if they look correct, then the user would think, yeah, that's correct, even though they are encoded differently. Now, to another extreme, the ordering here is different from what we have here because vowel A is now in between the 2 subscripts, right? And that would produce, that would render the same thing on the screen as the correct one. So this kind of complexity is very challenging for the for human being with a naked eye to see, hey, whether this is right or this is wrong. And if we look into Google search, then we would see people have used different thing extensively. For example, the second one, it is wrong in the subscript order, and there are 2 million occurrences in Google search, comparing to the 5.5 million in the Google search for the correct character order. The issue here, I would say, the identical subscript in the rendering. So as you can see, 17D2 plus 17.8A, so this kind of combination. And then the 17D2 with 17.8F, this kind of combination. So what's different is the consonant DAW here and then the consonant THA here. Right, let's look at the second, third, and fourth. What we have here is something that is similar to the correct one, right? Except that we have different consonant. This is DA, this is DA. Once again, this is 17.8A, this is 17.8F, right? This consonant. However, all of the renderings are the same, right? So this will give another problem. So people can use a different subscript to account for the subscript that they expect, right? And the hits are 500,000 here and more than 500,000 here and 2000s here. So what I'm trying to get at here, it's not just the order that is problematic, but the identical rendering of these two particular subscript. The problem like this occur because of the anarchy in typing. We call it anarchy because most people, they can just type however they want. And of course, we want them to type however they want, but we don't want the output to be different. Because if the outputs are different, the data would be messy. If you want to use the data, then you have to spend hours to clean up the data to make sure that you have those consistent and meaningful. So let's look at another word that can be typed in a lot more way, at least 13 ways. I would like to give you a heads up that this type of research has been done before, and we have tested it in Chrome version 58 on Android 6.0.1. And some issues might have been fixed already, but the damage stays. Why? Because you can still Google it. You can still find it in some texts, and they may show up with the dotted circle. So as mentioned earlier, this particular word, SERP, mean to detect, can be typed in at least 13 different ways. And back in Chrome 58, all of these would render the same way, as you can see the image next to each of these sequences, right? I have marked the sequences with asterisks here and here and the other three here because they have been fixed already. I have checked in the current version of Chrome on Android, and I can still type this way, but the dotted circle would be shown, right? Because it's not according to the Unicode character ordering. Two vowel cannot be combined, right? So you may be wondering why what is 9F and CAB 94 whatever. So these are the last two digits of the hexadecimal representation of the Unicode code point of this particular character, right? So the same way for this and the rest. So consonant SAW corresponding with the Unicode code point 17.9F, and then the consonant shifter 17CA, and then vowel R 17BE, and then the consonant BO 1794. All of these in this sequence would render this way. What I would like to give you a little bit more explanation is why you cannot see this on top of the base, because it's supposed to be, right? If you type saw and then the consonant shifter, then you would have these two combination. There would be no O, right? This kind of blip underneath the base, right? So I would like to bring your attention to the fourth one here. Okay, so this fourth one is interesting because you have the base saw, the 79F, and then the vowel, which look like this glip right here, right? So it's 17BB, and then the vowel, the 17BE, and of course the final consonant 1794 ball, right? So you have this kind of order. So you expect to see the base consonant, of course it's here, and then you expect this, the below vowel here, it's there, and then the vowel here, it's right here, and then the final consonant is like, okay, this probably the right one, but actually it's not, okay? Because we have a rule for whenever the consonant shifter is followed by a vowel, an above vowel, or some things like this one on top, the consonant shifter would change itself into a glip that look like this. It doesn't mean that it would change into the vowel, but it means that the the rendering would render it to be something like this vowel, right? So the encoding is like this, but the representation is like this, okay? So this is the root cause of the confusion when it comes to what the user may intuitively be thinking. Okay, so the user may think, hey, we have this vowel in the output, right? So we should type it this way. So consonant saw with vowel O and then vowel R and then the consonant ball, right? Then it would produce this one, but actually it's not right. Now, when there are multiple ways to encode a word to produce something that is desirable on the screen, there is a risk to it. If one day Khmer script is used in the domain name, then this is a big issue, and it could be a highly insecure way. Anyone can be spoofed at any time um, with this kind of multiple character ordering, and user have no idea because they just look the same on the screen even though they have different encoding. Let me show you the gap in the understanding of the users. So users may not really pay attention on instruction. They just pick up the phone or the computer with a keyboard and then they just start type away. Whatever will look correct to them is considered as correct by them. That's why we are here. That's why there are discrepancies in our encoding system. Another source of a gap here is because of the legacy keyboard. People who have used legacy keyboards and fonts, they may still have the idea of combining vowels together or combining vowel with a subscript, even though this is not a logical order. The logical order is that vowel should come after the subscript. And the same way for vowel and register shifter or consonant shifter, as Unicode put it. So this kind of gap stir up all of the discrepancies that we have seen. The next question is, which is the standard? which character order that could be taken as a standard and adopted. Okay, so we have here Unicode Standard, OpenType, and OpenForum. I will discuss a lot about Unicode Standard and OpenType, but less with OpenForum, because OpenForum is just the organization that implement what Unicode Standard has, even though they have tailor-made some things in their documentation. So let's get started with the first point that we see as discrepancies. So the first one is that Unicode Standard considered a consonant or an independent vowel as a base. So either of these two can be a base, while OpenType say no, only a consonant can be a base, right? So yeah, we kind of are having a conflict here between Unicode Standard and the OpenType by Microsoft, right? The next one is the dependent vowel that is allowed after a base, all right? So we have dependent vowel that's only allow after a base, a subscript, or a consonant shifter. But OpenType, on the contrary, also allow the vowel before the base. Okay, so this might be because OpenType rely on the physical representation of where the vowel should be in relation to the base, right? We've seen in the OpenType document that dependent vowels were divided into 4 types. Okay, so you have the pre-vowel, the post-vowel, the above vowel, and the below vowel, right? So that is true according to the physical representation, because we see the vowel on the left of the base, and the right of the base, above the base, and below the base, and stuff like that. That is okay, but it is not logical when it comes to the character ordering that the user should type. It doesn't matter whether they are shown before the base, it should be typed after the base, right? And that's what the Unicode Standard has. The Unicode Standard enforce that a dependent vowel should only be put after the base, okay? Or the subscript or the consonant shifter as listed here, right? So the last part is the usage of a robot and the zeroid joiner. Okay, so Unicode Standard mention a robot and where it should be placed, right? However, OpenType did mention where a robot should be placed, or where zeroid joiner should be placed in the rules. Okay, in the rules itself. Now we can see these three are the things that we have seen, and there might be more. And I would invite you to investigate further and see if there is any more discrepancies between the Unicode Standard and the OpenType. So we see that the Unicode use this kind of representation in the rules. So I have changed that in OpenType so that we can see them side by side here, including the OpenForum as well. Okay, so now that we have all of the representation in mind, so in here, Unicode start with a base, right? And OpenType start with a consonant. And then there is a robot. OpenType doesn't mention anything about robot, but it may be in the sign, right? So there is a sign here and a sign here. And the robot can be interchangeably used with consonant shifter. So after the base, then the consonant shifter, while OpenType say hey, the consonant shifter should be further away from the base, and not right after the base. Okay, not right after the base consonant. So as you can see here. All right. Now, this is also an issue, and there is a long conversation um, and discussion where the consonant shifter should go in comparison to the subscript, right? So in here, the consonant shifter is close to the base and before the subscript, right? While the OpenType and OpenForum suggest that the consonant shifter should be after the subscript, right? So subscript here, and then we have consonant shifter right here, right? OpenType went into a little bit more extreme by putting vowel before the consonant shifter. This might be because they have something that they call pre-vowel, right? So that is put before the consonant shifter, all right? And this might be the post vowel that they have, or the above and below vowel as well. But I just put this representation as we here so that we can get the general idea, right? Okay, so we see two differences already, right? So one is the mention of robot in Unicode, but not in OpenType, and the mention of consonant shifter after the base, while OpenType say nope, it should be after subscript or even after vowel. You will see the proposal I have afterward, and it would explain why it should be there. So another things that we can look into is what we have here at the end of this character sequence. Okay, so we have a vowel, a sign, and then a subscript. So a subscript occur after a sign or at the end of this sequence. It is because it has to be there so that it can be used with all way of writing. So some subscript may be right after a vowel, right? So that was common 50 or 60 years ago um, in the middle Khmer or something. Now, we have seen something more interesting here where the sign are mentioned twice, okay, in OpenType, but not a subscript. So when it comes to iOS 10, 3 of the 4 are rendered correctly, right? The same way, only one is the right one, right? And let me remind you that when we have the trace up, the 17CA with an above vowel, okay, this is an above vowel. In this case, it's 17B8. The rendering of this would be similar to that as 17BB, okay? But it doesn't necessarily mean this would be switched to this one automatically, no. They look like that, but they don't switch automatically to that, okay? The encoding is still the same, but the rendering is like that of the BB, okay? This bit here, all right? So in iOS, what is significant to look at is these two, okay? The only difference is the order of the two vowel, the 17B8 and 17BB. One is put after another and then the other way around, right? But one is rendered correctly, the other is not, okay? In the logical term, we would encourage the rendering to show the dotted circle of the second vowel because it's not logical to combine two vowels together, right? Okay. And the usage of this here is not according to the spelling convention because the musikatuan, okay, should not be attached to saw because it's already in the first series. For those of you who know the Khmer spelling rule, then you would figure out immediately that this is not the right way. The right way is to use the trace up 17CA with saw to change the series, and then these altogether would be pronounced as C here, Okay, right. Now, let's go to the real life um, and see what it would be like when we do a search on Google for these 4 sequences. So if I type in the logical way, the result would be more than 5 millions, right? But if I type in the illogical way or illegal way or incorrect way, right, I would find half a million result here, 3 million, more than 3 millions result here, and then less than half a million here. All right. The things that strike me is that we have 3 million, okay, 3 million results, more than 3 million results for the third options. Why? Because the third option is the most intuitive way that most user would use in their typing in their on their device. So they would just type saw and then the vowel, okay, that look like this one and look like this one, because that's what it should be like, right? So you have a base and then this and then that, right? This one corresponding to this one corresponding to that. So the whole idea is that it is very intuitive for people to type in the incorrect way, because that's how they see the physical representation, and they would just type that way. They don't know whether it's logical or not. Um, for those who knows the spelling rule, then they may type it this way, right? And they may not be surprised when the 17CA changed to look like this clip, all right? So because that's what expected, and that's what is taught in school. It's like when you spell out, you should spell consonant, the consonant saw with trace up and then with vowel a, right? And all of these would be pronounced as C, okay? So this is just one example. There are many other words that can be typed more than one way, that can be typed multiple ways, and you can still find them in Google. That means people are using them. That means people don't know the correct way of typing. That means people have no idea about what is logical, what is not logical when it comes to encoding. They just type it. If it looks correct, then they would keep using it. And for the second one, why there are more than half a million? Because when we go to our rendering, of course, in Ubuntu and in Android, it rendered correctly. So people type it that way and it rendered correctly, then yes, it looks correct, then it's correct. It looks like the correct one, right? The correct one is like this and it's here. It's also the same as the correct one. Why don't you use that one? So what can we do? The rendering engine should not render the illegal sequences or the illegal character sequences to look like those of the correct one, right? So in that way, the user would be prompted, okay, to correct that when they see the dotted circle. So the dotted circle is very important to notify the user, to show to the user that, hey, what they are typing is not right, okay? It doesn't follow the standard, okay? So then they can correct that, and then they just do it in another way, or they would figure it out, right? There is another way that can be done. So alternatively, it can be mitigated in the input level. So the user doesn't have to go to any reference, doesn't have to go and ask another user or somebody who they may need the help with, you know. The keyboard would be able to reorder, to manipulate the character order, right? So whenever the user type, okay, for example, when the user type it in this way, the keyboard would change this into this, okay? It would change the 17B8 and 17BB into 17CA and then 17B8 automatically, all right? So user can still keep typing it this way, right? It doesn't matter as long as we have the rules to account for all of these patterns, and then the result would be like this, okay? Because that's what is expected, right? And our data would be cleaner. We would have only the ones that follows the legal sequences, all right? So the other things that we have to deal with is to unify the standards. Here's a new proposal. It is supposed to be simpler and easier to adapt or adopt by developers. Okay, and let's look at the way that it is organized. Okay, so it would start off with the base, of course, the same as the current Unicode standard. The only difference that we have is that we switch place of the consonant shifter and the subscript. Okay, so this doesn't mean that we don't allow the user to type the consonant shifter after the base, even though there is a subscript after it. Okay, they can still type it that way, but this order would be maintained, should be maintained in the encoding, right? So that we can have an easier a sorting order, right? We would give priority to the base and then the subscript and then the consonant shifter and then vowel and then sign and then the and or subscript. So this kind of ordering is very much simpler, right? And it would reduce whatever we have in the issues that's already mentioned, right? And it would reduce the discrepancies if the OpenType and the Unicode standard would consider. So let me bring you back to the order that OpenType has. So OpenType has the consonant shifter correct partly here because it's after the subscript, right? Okay, and the Open Forum also has a consonant shifter after subscript. Okay, so what it means is that if we just have the majority voice here, it means that the consonant shifter should be put after subscript is more acceptable than to have it in between the base and the subscript. Okay, so to reiterate that, OpenType is partly correct when it comes to where the consonant shifter should be. So it's put after the subscript. Likewise, Open Forum also has consonant shifter after subscript, but Unicode Standard currently allow the consonant shifter before the subscript. What it means is in between the base and the subscript, while it should actually after the subscript, right? So the order should be base or the consonant and subscript, and then the consonant shifter, and then vowel, and then sign or another subscript. So a subscript here is given so that we can still keep using the old spelling, right? Yeah, to cover the old spelling. The subscript may be put after a vowel, right? In the old way of spelling. So in the contemporary, we don't have that that kind of order. We don't have vowel and then subscript. Okay. So yes, now this is a new proposal. Take it or leave it. And what we have here is just for us to have the discussion going and consider what should be taken as a standard and update the Unicode standard or the OpenType rules. Okay, I know they may have their own reason of doing what they're doing, but it would be very good to have a unified character order to avoid any correct rendering of incorrect character sequence. So to sum up, there are a number of issues arise, right, from the discrepancies in character sequences and the rendering. We have seen in real times that a word may be typed in different ways, right? In different character sequence, and the rendering would produce the same, right, as the correct one, and that is not right. And the promising search result may be missed. So that means even though we have the correct sequence in our data, but if the user used the wrong one, then they may not be able to search for our content, right? And the text sense may be rendered unreadable in a different device. So as shown earlier, we have a WhatsApp message that is sent from Android to an iOS, and the sequence that looked okay on Android may look gibberish in iOS. So that kind of things is very problematic for the user, because we don't want people to look at something that is not readable, right? So the data collection of the text may needs a lot of cleaned up. So if you want to do the data analysis, then you would spend a good amount of time on cleaning up the data, trying to sort out, okay, so this word, why, the there are different ways of typing, and then just get rid of the ones that's incorrect, or maybe you can use those, and then it would it would destroy the model that you have, right? Or yeah, or I don't know, it could be more than that. So the Unicode Standard and OpenType character sequence rules should go together, right? Because right now they don't. Okay, they don't go together, and they really need to work on a unified rules that can be adopted. Okay, and yeah, I am still open to the proposal that I have, that open to discussion and investigation and collaboration if required. I am happy to be a part of a discussion, so that we can solve these issues. We can solve these discrepancies in Khmer character ordering, right? So this is Keyman developer you are seeing now. So if I want to type, okay, the wrong sequence, let's say, let me organize this a little bit. Okay, so let's see if I type this incorrect sequence. We know this is the correct sequence, right? So let me type the correct sequence first and see the magic happen. So I type the consonant SAW, the 17.9F, and then the consonant shifter, right? The 17CA, and then the above vowel 17B8, okay? The rendering would change, okay, this glip into this glip. Okay, as you can see. So this is the correct one, right? So just different fonts. Okay, different font from this one. So let me type the wrong one to show you. So if I type 17.9F, the consonant SAW, and then vowel A, 17B8, right? And then the vowel O, 17BB, okay? So as soon as I type O, the sequence would be changed. As you can see here, it's switched to 17CA and then 17B8 automatically, right? So once again, when I type SAW, right, and then the vowel A, and then O, right, automatically it switched to the right one, right? Or if I try the third sequence, okay, so SAW with O and A, right? So SAW and then O, 17BB, right? And then the 17B8A. The 17BB is changed to 17CA automatically to the consonant shifter. right? Because we know for a fact that the two vowels should not be allowed, okay? Whenever there is the 17BB and 17B8, the 17BB should be switched or changed to 17CA. Thank you very much for your attention.